Okay. Before we started recording, we were talking about like, wow, imagine if these episodes were only like 8 minutes. And Jen was like, we could do that in 2 seconds. And I was like, no, you could still only do it in 8 minutes. What's the pound of feather thing? What were you talking
Oh,
about?
I was like, it's like the pound of how people, there's like that riddle. What is heavier, a pound of rocks or a pound of feathers?
It's still a pound.
Exactly.
That's a riddle?
Apparently. Let me tell you, it got me the first time.
Okay, I have a joke. Do you want to hear it? This is my
Yeah.
daughter's favorite joke. Are you ready?
I'm so excited.
Where does the fish keep its money?
No clue.
In the riverbank.
Oh, wow. Wow. I think she's going to be a comedian.
You like that? You like
That
that?
is good. Where is she? She's got any other ones?
Speaking of younger selves and younger children,
Wow.
let's
What a
talk.
segue.
You like that? Let's talk
Yeah,
about
it's
advice
good.
to our younger selves.
So also, I have to say, I love this episode.
Okay,
We haven't
tell me
even
more.
started it.
Do you love this episode? It could
But
end
I
up like
just
garbage.
that's true. That's fair.
Which is funny because you usually have very low expectations in general. So tell me more about how you love this episode.
I think first of all, I've had a lovely morning, so that's really prepped me for being,
Okay.
just like ready for
Yes,
this.
yes.
I also just think, I think back to my younger self and think there's so many things that I would tell her.
Okay, so what's the first one that comes to mind?
Okay, I think one of my favorite ones is that the first time you do anything is always going to be the hardest.
Okay.
I could only because I'm telling myself that right now when we're in this huge transition with the business.
Because we're opening up a fancy brand new office.
We are opening up a brand
I'm
new
gonna call
Philly
it our
office.
fancy schmancy place.
I love that. Maybe that should be the title of it, Fancy Schmancy Place.
Fancy, it's a therapy group at
I like that.
At 18th and Fancy Schmancy.
And Fancy Schmancy. I love that street. It's such a good street in Philly.
Okay, wait. So you're telling yourself that, but this is our what? Technically fifth office we've opened.
But I there are roles are changing constantly, right? Like with the business expanding, we are consistently getting new roles that we have never taken on before. You know what I mean? And I think, both of us at times will get overwhelmed by that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself the other day, like, this is the first time that we have ever been in a lot of these roles.
And what would you define those roles as?
A million different things. I'm just wondering.
Hats. Yeah. Okay. Wearing 80 hats. Yes.
We're like decorating the office. We know how to do that. But
that's fun.
That is fun. That's our favorite part.
Yes.
But just growing a business is something, as it gets bigger, as we have more responsibilities, it's something we've never done before.
Well, also, it's really so okay. So we had also put out to all of our Instagram followers what advice do you have for yourself? And somebody wrote in one that I loved, which was you can't speed up getting experience. It just happens.
Yes.
And if you think back to now going on 9 years ago, when we first opened our first tiny little basement office.
And we rented furniture.
We rented furniture because we couldn't afford furniture. We couldn't afford to purchase furniture. So instead
the furniture was horribly ugly too.
At the time, we thought it looked good, though.
We did.
We thought it looked really good. Also, we could only pay. Because
it was our only option. A month. It was our only option.
So, okay, but it's interesting, right? So when we had done that, like all we wanted at the time was like, please, can we just get 5 clients? Like I remember thinking, like, if I could just get 5 clients, I could feed myself.
I could maybe honestly feed ourselves a little bit, but also. I remember, do you remember we were in my place on Rodman Street and we got our first voicemail
ever.
And you were like, Jen, this is a sign, like this is going to work out. And it's because she saw the sign on our office.
Yes, we got a sign from our sign.
But the amount of anxiety that we had at that time was insane. No one can really tell you that it's going to work out. And so now, because we've gone through this experience, right, we could go back and say to our younger selves, like, listen, you're going to be fine.
Mm,
Right. I think that's a big one, to be able to
yeah.
tell yourself at different points of time in your life, you're going to be okay. But the problem is that no one can tell you that. And I think we're always searching for that.
And I think the thing is that like probably people did try to tell me that. And I got really annoyed.
Of course, because you they really can't tell you that for
Yeah.
sure.
Although I will say when I tell you that now, like when we went and looked at this Philly space, right? I was not bugging at all.
Yeah.
I was pretty cool as a cucumber this time, which is rare for me because as everyone knows, nobody in my life would define me as a chill person. I don't think like if anyone's
I think you're
like
very chill.
name 3 words to describe Emily, like I don't think chill is probably coming up on that list.
Maybe it's like the fifth one. You have your moments. This morning, you were very chill.
This morning I was really chill, but when we saw that office, that's when I was like, this is fine. You were still bugging a little bit. It was me and your husband who was like, this is gonna be fine.
Two most
And
important relationships
the
in my
2 most
life.
relationships.
We're like, calm the fuck down.
We're like, this is gonna be fine. This is gonna work. But before, and I think it's interesting because now when I say it to you, like you can hear it because like you and I think are in such a different place in our relationship. But Jen, 8, 9 years ago, if I had said it was gonna be fine, you'd be like, no, just let me be freaked out. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't actually let me say that to you.
Well, and I also think because I was freaked out this time, but not as freaked out as I would have been 8, 9 years ago because of the experiences that we have already gone through.
Because you can't speed up getting experience. It
Because
just
you can't
happens.
speed
This
up
is the
it's
best.
right.
I don't know who wrote that in, and if you're
But we
listening,
love
please tell
you.
me. But that, and I think I can see it even in some of our younger clinicians now, or newer, greener clinicians who like want to like do all the stuff. I get all the stuff, and I'm like, sometimes you just have to like pick one thing you're working towards, not
Yeah.
do everything at once, and that is so hard to do when you feel like there's like this race.
Well, I think that a piece of that too is that it's so easy to look at people who do have experience and who have
Mhm.
gone through it and say, like, well, why aren't I there? How do I get there? We
Yeah.
start to compare ourselves to people we see at being at a different point than us. And I think that that makes us want to speed up the experience because we
Mhm.
see how self-assured that they are or how comfortable they are
Yep.
in their role. And so maybe really what we're saying is like, I want that confidence. I want to feel comfortable. I want to
Mm.
feel self-assured in this. And the I think that that very much couples with getting experience, that the only way to get to that point is to go through these really uncomfortable times of not knowing what you're doing.
Somebody else had written it that it's okay to walk in your own timeline. There's no need to compare to someone else's. And I think it's so true. And yet the automatic is comparison,
Yes.
right? Like, especially I think when it's someone who's like in your field or doing something, you think you should like follow that exactly, figure that out. But different things work. I was had a phone call often people call us up being like, I'm trying to open something. And like, once again, just so you guys know, Jen and I offer private practice consulting, but but also sometimes we're like make a phone call if it's, a friend or something. And so I'm on the phone with this other therapist this morning and I was like, listen, what worked for us when we opened this practice in 2014, I don't know if it would work the same way now. Right. Like at that time, like Jen, we couldn't have grown an Instagram following for the therapy group now with this algorithm and this
No.
saturation as we
That's
did
and
in
that's I
2014.
yeah, no, I tell people that all the time. It's very different now, so
That's what I
do not we started our Instagram in 2014.
when like it was like not there wasn't like a ton of Instagram therapists then.
Right.
Right? Like that, like there really truly wasn't. So like so also to try to like follow exactly in someone else's footsteps, right? I mean, I think about this all the time, like with our parents. Our parents didn't have student loans. Our
Right.
parents didn't have unbelievable like inflation and like, you know, housing prices versus salaries and stuff. Like it's so different. So when you try to like follow that timeline, it's also set up for failure
Yeah.
because it's not the same. Context
Well,
changes.
and I think that we do that in a way to be able to give ourselves the assurance of like, I'm going to be okay. And so if I see someone else who's in this position where like they seem to be doing well, they seem to have gotten through it, if I follow those exact steps, then that gives me security that I'm going to be okay.
Mhm.
However, times change, right? Like if I followed what my parents did, I would be in a completely different position.
Yes.
And so I think that how do you think, and maybe this is something we can talk about, how do you think we've gotten to the point of like getting through those uncomfortable times where, because we really didn't follow a lot of, we took advice, but we kind of carved our own path, I think, in a lot of ways. How did we
Mhm.
do that?
We just did it scared.
Yeah, we were terrified.
I mean, I think that is it. Is like this idea that like it's gonna feel you're not gonna feel freaked out. Now we're able to be like, listen, we're gonna sign this 10-year lease and put like fucking like take out. We were putting up this new office. We had to take from our personal money to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that
Right.
was
So like
fun.
that was so much fun last
That was
month
a
when we
blast.
didn't get paid once. Um and took money
Oh
out of our
God, that was
personal.
good.
So like so now I think that we can sit here and we just do it scared.
And we
Even if we
know that that's the process of it now.
Yeah, but I think before that was the thing is we thought because, like, we were so scared and anxious about it that it meant it was wrong,
Yes.
but it wasn't. It was just also fucking scary because it's scary doing anything different
Yeah.
because everything is risk. Starting a business is risk, joining into a relationship is risk, meeting new people, trying a hobby. It's all scary and hard, and so you do
Life
it
is
scared.
frisky. I do
Yeah.
think that's it, is that we've gotten not just more comfortable with ourselves, but more comfortable with the process of being scared in something and moving forward with it, knowing that it's the right decision.
So, this past week I was at Camp Dreamcatcher,
Yeah.
and before I was a therapist, before I was at the therapy group, I worked at a place called Camp Dreamcatcher, which is a nonprofit summer camp, and I taught puberty and sex education there. And it was funny because so I went back this week. I hadn't been there in 4 years. I couldn't believe like actually how many of the kids remembered me. Probably because I have pink hair when I go, so like it's
Right.
it makes me
Smart.
a little bit more aware.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, it's that chick or the white chick with the pink
Right.
hair again.
Right.
She has more tattoos now. And it was funny because one of the things we were trying to really get through that honestly I do with a lot of the women is it don't send nude photos. That I do not care if you've been married for 20 years, it's actually still a risk to send nude pictures when you put something out there. And it's this like really funny thing because we're sitting there talking about it, and I said to them, I was like, I'm not even like literally just saying this to you as 12-year-old girls. I literally would say this to my 42-year-old clients
Right.
because we don't live
100%.
in like a cyber safe place. Like we just generally don't live in a time where there's like actual security, even though the entire premise of Snapchat, I think, pretty much was invented on that.
Right.
So some of this advice also that I want to give to younger self, I also want us to give to ourselves. And I
Yes.
think that it's really, I think that it's helpful to sit here and say, what do I want my younger self to know? And then what should I also be saying my present day self? So if my younger self is need to say, I'm picking one of these. I'm going to pick one from our
Yeah.
list
Yeah.
here.
Good.
I
Good.
wrote it in. If I need my advice to my younger self is learn to stand up for yourself. Also, what's the advice to present day self with that?
Hmm.
So if younger you needs to learn how to stand up for yourself, I'm also wondering how hard it is for current self to implement that.
Hmm. Because don't we all just have that younger self inside of us? There
Back to
it
inner
is.
child
There it
work, right?
is. And so that's really what this is, right? Like, this isn't, I think, I was thinking a lot about the idea of like regret and how you could easily interpret this episode as, oh, this means that I regret something, or that like I want to go back. But what I think is really important is that like we all do still have that part of us that I think very easily comes out, like that fear based part, the one that's struggling. And I think the advice to our younger selves is really also the advice that we still can give to our present day
Mhm,
selves.
mhm. Um,
Let's throw
okay.
out some more. I
Yeah,
love these. People wrote
I
so
mean, like,
many
an
in.
unbelievable amount. Okay, so just Jen, just start ripping.
Um
That's the word? Just keep going.
like ripping farts.
I
That's
was
the
gonna
first
say
thing.
ripping farts,
And
and I
it's
didn't know if that was too
first,
inappropriate.
yeah, no, because we're so appropriate on this show. Today is the day that we're no longer appropriate.
Alright, so start ripping advice and ripping farts. Let's go, baby.
Um, don't let your self-worth be determined by romantic partners or interests. I
Mhm.
do love this one.
And
I
I love it
do.
for current day self.
Current day self, and I love it for past self.
It's funny because also now, like, sometimes if you work, you work with couples, and like the reality is that like desire and sexual arousal can go through peaks and valleys, baby, at all times. And I think that it's really hard to not take that personally. If
Yep.
our partner is having a lower sexual desire, to not feel like, oh, that's about me or my body in some way, when really it could just be about such a multitude of things. And so I think it's interesting to give to younger and current self.
Because and I also think, right, like, because you can get to this point in your relationship where you're like very self-assured and you feel you're like, I can give myself self-worth, but there can also be times throughout your life, whether something comes up at work or whatever, right? Like you take a blow to your security within yourself. And in those times within your relationship, that might come up for you more so than other times. That it's not, it's more so on a continuum of like, we can go through waves of this. There are times where I feel so secure within my relationship of like, I feel great. And there are times in which like I'm struggling with other things and it might trickle into my relationship. So bringing yourself back to that point, I think, by using this, by saying, I'm going to give myself this advice of like, do not let your self worth be determined by your partner. How do you bring yourself back to that within you? I like this. Fuck them all. You're amazing just the way you are and worth everything. Yeah.
Fuck them all. All right.
Fuck them
That
all.
is who is it? Who is it? Like, is it a Helen Mirren quote or somebody that's like, things that I wish is I just told more people to fuck off. I feel like that for myself.
Yeah.
Right, and I like somebody else had said, "Ask if you like them, not if they like you." And I think a lot of people talk about this in terms of romantic relationships, but I think this about a lot of friendships. There's been
Mhm.
times in my life that I've been like, "Why doesn't this person like me?" And we really talked about this in our astrology episode. Some people just fucking hate me for no reason. That first, I am very unpalatable for many people. And so I have spent a lot of time mainly in friendships being how do I get him? How do I get this person to like me? As opposed to like, why does it matter so much about people
Yeah.
liking me? Like, do I even like them?
Right. People pleasers.
Not
Uh,
me.
no, no. I was just saying in general.
Not this
Definitely,
girl. I don't know
definitely
her.
not you.
No,
No, but
okay.
I love that, and you know, I think that someone said something about like protecting your energy. I don't know where it is.
Be
We'll probably
selfish
find it.
about your energy. Don't put time into people who
Yes.
don't reciprocate.
That sticks out for me. I think because my energy is so easily drained. And I think that's a huge one, and I just wish that I was taught that more to be able to, like, set boundaries that you can set, especially as an introvert, for all my introverts out there,
Mm,
to really understand yourself as an introvert and to be
mm,
able to set those boundaries for yourself when you need them, because I think in our society, extroverts are so celebrated and it's more expected of you to be an extrovert,
mhm.
especially as you're growing up and you're learning to be social. And so um to really understand yourself as an introvert, I think is really important, and to be able to implement those boundaries socially and to
Yeah.
not feel guilty about them, because I think that's a big thing, is like you feel like something's wrong with you or you feel bad about them when you're like, okay, I'm done here, like I'm ready to go home, or like I need time to
Mhm.
myself.
What's
um
funny is something that I'm really working on at couples therapy.
Fun.
Something that my couples therapist told me I really need to work on is my unbridled, emotional expression,
Yeah,
that
self-expression.
I don't need to fucking talk and say I'm feeling all throughout the day. And I do think that one of the reasons it's been hard on me is because historically, in some ways, it has been celebrated in our culture. We're all about like, say how you feel, be vulnerable, do all this shit. But like,
Yes.
sometimes you should also shut the fuck up. And that really
Yeah.
took me a long time. And my very expensive couples therapist calling me out on it. Um, to say like, actually, like what you have to say is you could say in one sentence. So like
Right.
in couples therapy, my husband's allowed like an hour to talk about something. I'm allowed like three sentences.
Just trying to balance it out a little bit.
And that's the difference between equity and equality.
Right, right. That unbridled self-expression, right? But I think as therapists too, we're like, express yourself, like say what you feel
And you can do that without vomiting everywhere. And
without
that's
bulldozing the other person.
yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
I
mean,
did.
I personally don't see that in you.
Yeah. I I don't that can't possibly be true.
I don't think it's true.
Really?
I mean,
I
it
guess
doesn't
I'll
happen
okay,
for
I'll
us.
say why though, just because I think that but in our relationship, I don't get triggered as much as I do in my
Of
marital
course.
relationship simply because like marriage is my marriage to me feels so much harder than us. I also think like yeah, I don't know, there is something very different. So I think that also it's because I'm just triggered less in our relationship compared to like all the shit that comes up with parent and also all of this really marriage for us got so much harder after becoming
Yeah.
parents together.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens. Just to normalize that. I
For
think people I mean, I once again, this is for you to
okay.
say, but I think that people are very surprised by that, that there's a lot of expectation of like, this is gonna bring us closer. And I think it's
I
so normalizing to say that.
and I will also say there was a lot of moments that did.
Yeah.
Right? Like there was times like we have really we always have this one memory we have that like one time it's like 3 in the morning. Our daughter was probably like 5 weeks old. She shit all over the place, shit on my husband. While he went to go clean up, she ended up shitting on me. We're both covered in shit. It's like what I mean, like the middle of the fucking night. And like we are just hysterically laughing. It was so horrible. Right? Like one of those situations. We were on vacation, quote unquote. And when you have kids, it's not a vacation, it's just a trip.
Right,
We were on a
right.
trip last week at a lake and we had, a bunch of our friends were there with their kids. And at one point, all the kids were like just screaming upset on the boat. Everyone was overtired. These kids were like, I mean, to the point where like people in other boats were staring at us. And I mean, I was just laughing so fucking hard because it was so horrible. And like when I hit that point, I think it's like so hilarious because I don't have another way to cope.
Right.
So I do think that there are parts where like it's good and you get closer in parenthood. And then the part that you are not prepared for is how much of a strain. And I think people can warn you about it. And until you experience it, you're like, ooh, that one fucking hurt.
Do you feel like because we're talking about, advice to your younger self, would you tell yourself anything before you became a parent? Like, is there any advice you would give to yourself before you became a parent that you feel like,
For me, it goes back to that person who wrote in, you can't rush experiences, they just
right,
happen.
wow,
And that's the thing is I do think everyone's always like, people don't talk about this enough. It's bullshit. They do. Like, you know what
right,
I mean? Like, I always heard that in terms of like people being like, no one talks about how hard breastfeeding is. Actually, everyone talks about it. But until you're in it, you actually just don't care. And that doesn't make you selfish or unkind. It just means like it really didn't apply to your life, so it didn't matter that much.
yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, so it's so easy for us to be like, oh, well, nobody listens to me. But like, yeah, like, no shit, right?
I
If my
think
husband's talking about how hard it is, I don't know what is even
what
hard
is
for him.
what's is hammer something.
He's at our office right now hammering shit.
I don't know. You're like, I don't know, what's he doing?
Right? So like that's the thing is like what you know what I mean? So I do think it's this thing. I do think people talk about this. I think people talk about how hard marriage is, how hard parenting is,
But
how
you
hard like
just don't.
any of these things until
You
you're in
don't
it, like
integrate it. Also,
exactly.
it's so much easier to like not integrate advice or like something information that you're getting about something because it's not affecting you at the time, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so people might talk about it, you might see it, but it's until you're in it, until you're in the thick of it,
Yeah.
it's hard to integrate. And
Yeah.
so I love that. And
Yeah.
I think that goes back because we had a conversation once on the podcast, only God knows which episode it was, about something about how
Bring
someone
God into
asked about
this.
how do you like prepare
That
how do
girl.
you something
Don't
like
bring her into this, okay? Yeah.
sorry. So this is not a religious podcast. Um, something about like how do I prepare myself for like marriage or parenting or whatever. And now with anything, like you really can't, you have to go through it. It's almost like when people say, how do I not feel the XYZ?
Yeah.
You can't, you just have to feel it.
Mhm.
Maybe we should
Mhm.
change our motto.
Okay, what do you want to change it to?
You just have to feel it.
Fuck it, just feel it.
Fuck it, just feel. Oh, I love that.
You
That's
like
gonna be on
that?
our next sweatshirt.
Okay. Oh, that's actually a really good idea. Nikki,
Nikki,
when you're listening to this, could you write
Nikki,
that
we know
down?
you listen.
Can you,
because after we say it, we will forget that it happened.
can you write that down? Can you send that over to G with the merch and you could figure that out?
Also,
Okay.
can we talk about how many times we like, say things on the podcast? After Emmalee and I do these podcasts, we completely forget about what we talk about. We have no idea. And there's so many times.
That's how present we are.
Yeah. We're just keep on going. But it's as people will always say, oh my God, when you talked about XYZ on the podcast, and we're like, yeah, we have no idea what.
Okay, so let's talk about that. We had somebody approach us about like investing in the company, and he had listened to a lot of podcasts. He might be listening now. Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
And he brought up something for podcast. We had no fucking idea what he was talking about.
We were just like,
and Nikki had to. Did
Nikki,
she text?
Nikki started laughing.
Nikki had to tell us what he was talking
about. Oopsies. So just so you know, keep on rolling.
Advice to my younger self would be listen more when you talk. And that's the issue with unbridled self-expression is when I get triggered and I go into that state, I'm just saying a bunch of stuff. Right. And here's what my couples therapist says to me, Emmalee, you're not wrong, but your delivery fucking sucks. So you are not wrong in what you're saying, but Aaron can't hear you and nothing you're saying matters.
Because if I mean, he probably shuts down, right? Like I would be the one to shut down in that situation.
Yeah.
And just be like, I'm not listening anymore. I hear immediate. And
she said, Emmalee, you're just, talking into the void. Nothing matters. Okay. Let's advice for yourself. I really like, don't ever go on a diet. If I could tell my 10-year-old self, don't do it. Don't go down this fucking road and don't, you know what I mean? But also the reality is that like, for us, dieting was so normalized, right? Like, I mean, personally in my household, like dieting and diet foods and 100 calorie packs and snack wells and everything else that was like low fat and like just like fucking
Nutri something.
That my mom definitely my mom definitely still gets Nutrisystem.
Yeah, Nutrisystem, right?
Yeah. So that's what I mean. So there's always been but if I could say something to my like 10-year-old self, it is do not ever go on a diet. Please don't do this because you are gonna go down so far, so fast for so fucking long. So when you talk about regrets, I mean, I missed out on so much of life because I was trying so hard to be in a small body.
That's what I was going to say is like, does that feel like a regret?
Feels like a regret and a trauma wrapped up nicely into one little package.
Right. Yeah. Nice little package there. With a bow.
So, okay. So that's it.
I like to go. You go.
A lot of people wrote in about advice for yourself is go to therapy.
Oh, perfect. I mean, I did go to therapy when I was younger.
And it's one of those things where like, it's funny because even when I did used to work with like adolescent girls, like even when they were in the room, sometimes I was like, oh, you're just not ready to hear some of this stuff, right? Like we can give you coping skills and we can give you, but there's certain stuff, especially when you're living in the house with your parents and your parents aren't doing the work and they're not able to see it. Like, I mean, the amount of times that I'd be like, I can only help a kid so much if their parents won't change.
Exactly. And also your brain isn't, there are certain things that you're just not ready to integrate or take in. Your brain isn't fully developed at that point to be able to like, there are certain things you might be able to hear, but I think that, it can just be tough at certain ages. I do like the one thing that I really appreciated about going to therapy at such a young age was just that going to therapy was more normalized, even though it was like very hush hush that I was going to therapy, like don't tell anyone. It was still like, hey, when you're don't tell anyone. You can go, but going. Like it's a secret. It's really embarrassing. So don't go. No, so that's the part I would push back on. But the one thing I did appreciate was that like, okay, when you're struggling with something, you go to therapy. Like when something's going on, you go to therapy. So that is the one thing I really did appreciate, even though, I might have not taken anything else from that at the time. Oh, seeking therapy doesn't mean you're broken. Someone wrote in.
Someone should have told that to you.
I know.
Yeah.
Someone was telling me, don't tell a soul. Something's wrong with you.
Um, a lot of people wrote in. I was actually surprised by this one and then also not surprised, like, once I really thought about it and integrated it. A lot of people wrote in about, like, wishing they had told their younger selves to not be focused about dating, and a lot of people use the word boys, but, like, a partner. A
Mhm.
lot of people were worried about, don't be so obsessed with dating and, like, date yourself, and, like, really, like, this obsession you have with being in a relationship and getting there and finding someone, they felt like it wasn't the best thing for them.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was obsessed with being loved because
Same.
I had such garbage self-esteem and self-worth. I was like, "Pick me, choose me, love me, please, God."
Same. Same. I
Right?
also think
I
we're
wouldn't have
so
known that when I first met you.
what? That I what? What do you mean? I was the same way.
I know, but I didn't know that at the time, right? Like, when I first met you, so when I first met you, I mean, my husband I'm with now, I was with when you and I first got to know each other,
Yeah.
as I first stalked you, and you were with someone else, but, like, to me, you seemed like such a chill you seemed like the chill girl.
So at that point, I was
Okay.
getting more to that place because I had been a serial dater since 7th grade. Like,
Oh,
I
wait,
was
actually, when
in
I did first meet you,
yeah,
which the first memory I actually have meeting you, which we didn't realize until later on, is we met at that party, and
exactly.
you were in a very unhealthy relationship,
Yeah, that is very true. So
and
exact
that's
so
when
I
I first
I
met you
had
with that guy.
I had exactly. So I had already been through that experience. I think you missed those years. And
Okay, this makes
when we
sense.
were in grad school, we were both becoming so much healthier. Like as we've always said, grad school, like it takes time, even after grad school,
Yeah,
but like you're learning so much shit about yourself in grad school. And so
fucks you
like
up.
you met me at a much healthier time in my life. But before that, I was very much in that place. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was like chill girl when you met me.
Yeah, you were cool, chill
I'm
girl.
cool chill girl.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
I mean, still having a significant amount of panic attacks.
Right, right. At the time. Yeah, that's a really good point. I was still really struggling with my panic, but it didn't really have to do with relationships. I don't know what else is going on, but
It was just
okay.
still in your body. It
Maybe
was just
maybe
left
we
over.
t
It was residual.
residual. Maybe we take that back, the chill girl. I
Yeah,
don't
okay.
know if that
We'll
was
examine that
necessarily
one later.
I like almost thought I was gonna pass out while driving. So I don't know how
I want to
chill
know.
I really
I
was.
want to know, Nikki. Can you put up a thing on Instagram that says, "Have you ever pretended to be the chill girl?"
It's gonna be like
I want
100%.
data.
Did you ever pretend to be the chill girl?
I literally just told you I pretended my whole life. I'm not chill at all. I am
How about
not. I am neurotic and
It
rigid.
it goes back. You're so chill now. I
Now,
feel like you've gotten so much chiller over the years.
I think that's a nice combination now of Zoloft, of
That'll do it. Like,
um I think it, but mainly one, it's that I stopped dieting.
right.
I was significantly undernourished and fed for maybe 15 years, I would say, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, if I think about when I really started dieting. So, honestly, when I, like, really fixed my relationship with food, which I now feel is, like, fully healed, like, I don't believe that, like, like, I've totally recovered. Um, my brain was like, "Oh,
Oh.
food."
Oh, I was hungry. I
I was
needed to
hungry, and
be
also
more nourished.
I mean, I just thought about my body at all times.
Oh my
Just the
god.
amount of space in my brain that was about how I was not as good as other people because of my weight and how I looked, and if I could get the right friends or the right romantic partner to validate that, then it would make up for that worth.
Wow.
Not chill.
Right. That'll take up a lot of space.
Mhm, mhm,
Wow.
mhm. So advice for yourself, don't diet, don't do any of this stuff. And
It
I agree with all the people writing in, like, really focus on yourself. Like, I looked so much for external validation.
yeah. And okay, so my question is, do you think, because I'm thinking about this for myself too, and just like as I think about, clients I've worked with, and do you feel like you can get there without having the experience of focusing on the external validation first and realizing that it doesn't work?
I guess I don't know the answer to that, and I also don't know if it matters
Right.
because it didn't happen.
Right.
because the
Right.
life I have now is the life that I have, and that all came from all of that.
Right.
The other thing is if it didn't happen, I wouldn't be able to help also all the other people that I do get out of that. So
Right.
I don't know, and also I don't think it actually matters.
I think that, like, just from working with people and for myself, and that, like, it is so common that in general, we tend to focus on external validation because when we're children, right, that is the way in which we learn to see ourselves, is to get that external validation from our caregivers. And them saying, "Hey, you're doing a great job," or whether they're not giving us external validation. And so the goal is to take that and integrate it and say, we've said integrate so many times in this episode,
Yeah,
but
it's
it just
weird.
like keeps feeling right.
Mhm.
Is integrate it and feel like, okay, this is who I am. I can now give that to myself. But
Mhm.
making that shift, I think, is really challenging, especially when we weren't fully given what we needed as children. And, a lot of us struggle with that because our parents were imperfect humans or grew up in there was instability there. And so I think making that shift is really hard, but it's such a journey that you go through as you get older of like, how do I make that shift? Because looking for that external validation, we end up realizing doesn't fulfill us, right? We have no control. We don't have the control over it that we think that we have. And that the real control that we have over validation is when we give it to ourselves.
Mm. Okay, wait, before we do, dear Emma Jen, can I ask you something?
Please.
Because by the time this episode airs, you're gonna have had a birthday.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering, advice for yourself over the next year. Oh,
Advice for
wait,
my
wait, can
future.
we do that, what's it called? The pits and the peak of your
Yeah.
okay,
Of
so
my
so
year.
Jen, in your birthday celebration, pit and peak of your last year, and then advice for current self going into this one. Do.
Oh my god, I should have prepped for
Get a
this.
new business partner. Just
Okay,
that's kidding.
I have to
You're legally
say,
obligated.
I've got
We have more contracts than
literally would be
marriage.
the last thing I would ever choose. But I have to say, so it's not gonna be a specific experience, but
Okay.
I think that I have, in this last year, really, created intentional time to focus on taking care of myself. I know that that's pretty, like, generic, but,
No, it
like,
you have.
right? I feel like that's something I have really, like, intentionally done. Um, a hit, I don't know. I feel pretty good with where we are. I mean, there's definitely been struggles. I think there's been a lot of struggles and, like, growth. Maybe losing Tater, was that in this last year?
No, I think that was I'm not
Maybe,
sure,
oh,
but
it was like a year and a half
that's where
ago.
my mind went to too, was, you did
Yeah.
lose Tater,
That
yeah.
was that was horrible.
While your house was getting redone. That
Yeah,
whole,
that
that whole
whole
2 months was pretty bad.
yeah. And
Uh-huh.
so I wanna say, okay, losing Tater was like such a horrible pit. But with every challenge, I know this sounds kind of corny, but I really mean it. Every challenge that I go through, I'm able to have such perspective on it of like, I know that I'm going to get through this because of all of my past experiences
Mm.
in going through difficult things. And so that's, to do a kind of maybe a bigger wrap up on this is the advice to my younger self, like, is, I don't know if this is advice, but, like, I don't know if I would change anything because I have been able to get through such, struggles, and I would only know right now that I would be able to get through future struggles by going through those past struggles. So, even though they might be pits in my life, because getting through them has given me such strength and ability to know that I can get through things in the future, even if they're really challenging.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. I really mean it. And I am just so much older than you,
You
so
are
I can
so
give
much older than me. You are so much older than me. You
just
have
like
13 months,
it's
bitch.
what I am
This
just
baby is here for it.
I'll have a lot to teach you,
You
my
do. Yeah,
young
let me know when
child.
I get there. My
I
gosh.
mean, yeah. I'll next year I'll keep you posted about what your year ahead
Okay,
is
we'll
gonna
be
look like.
and
Yeah.
I will say this, Jennifer. I love you and I am so proud of you and I'm so impressed with you and you are so right. You have done such a good job taking care of yourself this year And I just think, oh, you age like fine wine, baby. You get better and better since I've known you.
Thank you so much. Do you think it's the
Mhm. I
Botox?
do. But this is me and your Jen.
What?
August 26th.
We're
It's
having an
our it's our
anniversary.
10-year anniversary.
What should we do?
Make
Oh
out.
my God, it's lit. I think our numbers would really
Oh my
go
god, then we
up.
could really get an OnlyFans.
Then we can.
Then we could actually make money.
I mean, we said we would literally do anything to build the business. So
So
time
make out
will
on air.
tell.
It is our 10-year anniversary. I love you. Happy
Wow. I
anniversary.
love you so much. This has been I said this to you at my wedding, but like the most significant relationships at my wedding. I said this to
Yeah,
Emily.
you did. As I was pumping in the corner.
As I was right after I got married.
And you
I
came up and
said
said,
that.
"You are the most significant relationship in my
I was
life."
like,
Okay,
don't tell
dear
my
Em and
husband.
Jen. Dear,
Dear Em and
dear,
Jen,
he's
let's
never
go.
listened to an episode. He'll never know.
So it won't matter.
Dear,
Yeah.
dear Em and Jen, I've been knowing myself and growing myself over the last few years. LOL. Amazing. And it's bringing to light how disconnected I was from myself in my early 20s, especially when it came to finding a romantic partner. I'm with you. I'm still with my partner I met when I was 23. I'm 31 now, and we've been married for a year, but I continue to do the work for myself on myself, and I notice how different we really are and how much I maybe bypassed those differences because I was so much more interested in getting a boyfriend at the time than anything else, if that makes sense. Any guidance would be much appreciated. I will say this. Okay. As someone who met their partner when they were 20 years old, what you're experiencing right now is developmentally appropriate for your relationship. You're going through a difficult growth and you are hitting a point, which is, are we going to grow together or are we going to grow separately? And I'm wondering, you've been doing all this work on yourself. Is your partner? Because that's going to be one of the hardest things. When you meet someone in your early 20s, you do not know yourself. I found that out the hard way. I thought I did. I was like, I'm definitely better than all these other people. So developmentally, it makes complete sense of where you are now. And what do you want to do with that? Do you feel like your partner is going there too? Because you're clearly doing so much of this emotional work and growth. Are you outgrowing them?
And I would also say hold your partner if you really feel like, okay, there's going to be a breaking point that we come to where the two of us are going to grow apart. Hold your partner accountable to also do the work.
Yeah.
Because I think that can be really hard that instead of just saying, well, I'm doing the work and they're not doing it and we're just going to grow apart, you get to also hold your partner accountable and say, hey,
Call them in, don't call them out.
yeah, call them in and say, listen, I'm doing a lot of this work. It's bringing up a fear for me that we're going to grow apart. And I'm wondering if we could do this work together or if you can also do the work for yourself so that we can grow together.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
truly, if your relationship feels worth it, right? That it's important to hold your partner accountable to that if it's really in the end going to pull the two of you apart. Hold them accountable.
So you are kicking ass doing that for you,
Yes.
and make sure the people you surround yourself with are doing it too. Because also, when we expect more from people, when we also encourage them and talk to them about it without going inward, people are typically way more capable than we think that they are able to be.
And they don't have a reason to change unless we hold them accountable, right?
Yes. Yep. All right. And that's it for the episode.
That's it.
Fuck it, feel it. What's our new thing?
I don't know. Feel it.
Nikki, we already forgot. All right.
Nikki, she probably wrote it down. She'll let us know.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we always ask you to rate, review, subscribe, follow on Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe and check us out on YouTube to not see Jen and I make out, but maybe we'll do that one day. That's how we'll get them subscribed on there.
There it
Follow us.
is.
Follow us.
And you have to say
Follow.
it's at the end so they watch
Oh
the
yeah,
entire
yeah,
thing.
exactly. Yeah, and then it won't even
Right.
be there.
Right. It will be
Um,
on Zoom.
If you we ask you to always check us out, follow us on Shrink Chicks, and then you can answer these great questions, get your Em and Jim's featured. And if you are looking to do some really great work on yourself, or you and your partner are looking to really do some great work on yourselves, you can work with one of our amazing clinicians from the therapy group. If you are located in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Delaware, Massachusetts, Florida, California, I think that's it.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, I'm not sure. There's a whole bunch. And if you're worried, you can always go to thetherapygroup.com. We have a huge new flagship location opening right in Rittenhouse in Philadelphia. Batch of amazing new clinicians coming on. So couples, individuals, families, we cannot wait to work with you. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, fuck it, feel it, and also know yourself for yourself. We'll see you next week.